All right, welcome to the explainer. So I want you to picture this for a second. You're standing right in the middle of the Ice Age. Snow stretches in literally every direction. Ice coats the rivers, it covers the rocks. You're surrounded by frozen water as far as the eye can see. And yet, in 3 days, you're going to be dead. And no, not from the cold, not from a cave lion. Today, we're going on a journey into the brutal, absolutely brilliant reality of ancient survival logistics. Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly do you die of thirst in a world made entirely of frozen water? I mean, it's the ultimate survival irony, right? And it was the single deadliest problem our ancestors faced. For over 100,000 years, the biggest threat to human existence wasn't massive predators. It was actually finding drinkable water in a deeply frozen world. Because, as you'll see, frozen water didn't save ancient humans, it actively tried to kill them. Section 1. The invisible deadly threat. So our first major hurdle wasn't just the freezing temperatures. The environment itself was an incredibly deceptive track. There's this super common myth out there that if you need to hydrate, you should just eat the snow. I mean, it feels like common sense, doesn't it? Scoop it up, let it melt in your mouth, problem solved. But actually, this is one of the absolute fastest ways to die in the cold. Think about it. Your body runs at a cozy 37 degrees Celsius. When you swallow snow, your body literally has to heat it up before it can use a single drop of that hydration, and all that heat gets sucked directly from your core. Every mouthful steals your core temperature. This is such a fatal mistake that even modern U.S. Army wilderness survival manuals explicitly warn against eating raw snow. You're not quenching your thirst. You're just freezing yourself from the inside out. So the crucial point here is that your own body actually lies to you in the cold. When temperatures plummet, your body pulls its blood inward to protect your vital organs. It's a process called peripheral vasoconstriction. But here's the catch. Suddenly, your core is flooded with blood, and your brain reads that flood as a signal that, hey, we have plenty of fluid. It completely shuts off your thirst alarm. But you are still losing water with every single white breath you exhale and every drop of sweat under those heavy furs. Our ancient ancestors had to fight this invisible battle, essentially forcing themselves to drink way before they ever felt thirsty. Section 2. Ancient water engineers. To overcome this invisible threat, prehistoric humans had to become brilliant engineers, using deep environmental knowledge and fire. But here's a brutal truth that most people miss when they picture the Ice Age. It wasn't just an endless snowy pine forest. A lot of it was the mammoth steppe, this vast, frozen, wind-swept desert. Trees were incredibly rare. Sometimes there wasn't a single tree for hundreds of miles. So to melt snow into drinkable water, they had to burn the unthinkable. We're talking animal bones packed with fat, twisted grasses, and, yeah, dried animal dung. This is survival engineering at its absolute finest, built entirely around keeping a flame alive just to keep the water flowing. And they didn't just melt water, they literally invented portable water. Let's walk through this incredibly clever step-by-step process. First, they would take an animal bladder or stomach, clean it out, and seal it. Then, they'd fill it up with liquid water from a deep spring. Next, and this is the genius part, they let it freeze solid right there in the deep cold. Now you have a block of clean, frozen water inside a pouch. It's super easy to carry and impossible to spill. Finally, whenever they needed hydration on the move, they just melt it beside their campfires. They took the deadly freezing temperatures and brilliantly turned them into a protective refrigerator for their journey. And this brilliantly illustrates how ancient humans survived by reading ice like it was a language. They knew that clear blue ice or fresh snow meant safe, clean water. On the flip side, cloudy white ice or still pools loaded with glacial rock dust, that would completely wreck their stomachs. And remember, getting sick without medicine back then, total death sentence. To find those safe, fast-moving rivers or hidden liquid springs, they followed the animals. A worn game trail, a circling bird at dusk, maybe an insect swarm. All of it acted like a giant neon sign pointing toward hidden, life-saving liquid water. Section 3. The 6-ton dilemma. Surviving the cold was really only half the battle. Securing food brought its own completely impossible logistical nightmare. 6 tons. Try to just picture that massive weight for a second. When a hunting party successfully brought down a mammoth, it was obviously an incredible victory, but it instantly created a massive problem. I mean, there was no way they could possibly drag 6 tons of meat and bone back to camp, not even close. The mammoth wasn't coming home, which meant something far more dangerous. Home literally had to move to the carcass. It's fascinating how this completely challenges our modern assumptions. Today, supermarkets teach us to really prize lean meat, but 30,000 years ago, Lean meat was just a tiny fraction of the prize. Dense, calorie-packed fat was the actual key to surviving those freezing temperatures. Lean meat fills your stomach for the short term, sure, but fat? Fat keeps you alive. It burns slowly, it warms the body, and it powers long, grueling days of survival. They weren't just getting a meal, they were harvesting an entire survival toolkit. Massive hides for shelter, bones for structural frames, and that precious fat to outlast the merciless winter. Section 4. Racing the Frozen Clock. A fallen mammoth didn't just mean food, it was a massive, flashing signal to scavengers everywhere. Let's move to and see how this builds, because the smell of thousands of liters of blood soaking into the snow would drift for miles. It created a terrifying timeline. Within the first hour, the ravens arrive. To the hunters, these birds are a blaring alarm bell. The wilderness has officially noticed them. By hour 3, their razor-sharp stone blades are constantly dulling against the incredibly thick mammoth hide, which totally bogs down their frantic processing. By hour 5, unseen wolves start barking in the distance, testing the humans' defenses. And by sunset, strangers, other human groups, arrive at the edge of the valley, drawn by the undeniable scent of the kill. This whole situation created an impossibly heavy psychological toll. The hunters were basically gambling with time. You have these exhausted humans carrying massive 50-kilogram loads on their backs through knee-deep snow, and they had to make agonizing choices. They were frequently forced to abandon perfectly good food just to save themselves. Because at the end of the day, survival isn't about getting everything. It's about giving up the right things. Carrying just one extra piece of meat simply wasn't worth it if it slowed the entire group down in dangerous predator territory. Section 5. The Blueprint of Society. If we zoom out of it, we start to see how the immense pressure of managing these massive resources actually forced humanity to evolve socially. Now, what's really interesting about this is it's super easy to assume Ice Age strangers just violently fought over a mammoth carcass. But the reality? Strangers actually frequently collaborated. They traded labor for food. Why? Because violence was simply too expensive. Remember, this is a world with absolutely no medicine. Risking an injury, even just a broken arm or a deep cut in a fight over meat, was pretty much a guaranteed death sentence. Cooperating to process a massive carcass faster was the ultimate survival strategy. Dismantling a mammoth was literally like dismantling a mountain, and it required incredible coordination. People had to slice meat incredibly thin so it would dry quickly in the freezing winds before rotting. They carefully wrapped that precious fat in skin so it wouldn't spoil. They cracked open massive bones for the hidden super calorie-dense marrow. They harvested sinew to make really strong rope and turned dense tusks into tools that were literally passed down for generations. Processing this animal forced humans into extreme specialization and deep forward planning. It effectively laid the early groundwork for modern societal organization. And you know what's mind-blowing? All of this incredible knowledge, where to find hidden springs, exactly how to preserve fat, how to safely melt snow with bonfires, none of it was ever written down. As this quote beautifully highlights, think of it as a living library. A library with no shelves and no pages, stored entirely in human minds and spoken aloud. The elders were basically walking maps. They carried these survival tricks for over 100,000 years, and we exist today as the unbroken proof of this living library. If even one single generation had forgotten how to find water or store food, that chain would have been broken forever. Today, we just turn on a tap without a second thought, right? We probably waste more water before breakfast than they could melt in an entire week. But that exact fight for survival is the only reason you and I are sitting here breathing today. So it leaves us with a pretty powerful thought. If our ancestors could outsmart the brutal, deadly puzzle of the Ice Age with literally nothing but memory, stone, and fire, what incredible survival instincts do we still have hardwired inside us that we've simply forgotten how to use?